For staying with us. 5 illegal mine workers have been retrieved alive from a mine shaft in Stilfontein in the northwest by this afternoon. They were assisted by about 50 residents who volunteered to rescue the suspected illegal miners who were too weak to come back to the surface by themselves. They have been using ropes to pull out those who were too weak because of a lack of water and food. Residents estimate that around 4,500 suspected illegal miners are still underground. Emergency services are on the scene to assess the health of 2 men. Let's get some reaction from this. We bring in spokesperson for the National Association of Artisanal Miners, Zethu Hlatshwayo. Very good evening to you, Zethu. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, what do you make of the situation?
Yeah, no, good evening to you, my sister, and good evening to your viewers at home. I think the situation is almost getting too critical, and it's really a cause for concern, because we are just at a major brink of a huge catastrophe that can engulf our country. Because if there's 4,500 people, men and women, who are trying to survive underground, and they are stuck there and they are unable to come out, that means we will have 4,500 more dead bodies underground. And I wonder who's going to be blamed for such, because that will be a catastrophe that was done purposefully, if you look at the situation, because we've been warning the government to say these tactics really cannot be implemented under democracy, because really it's going to have a ripple effect, because you understand that in the normal situation people can be able to come out, but underground, where there's less oxygen, you need more water. If you're dehydrated and you're hungry, that means it will be almost impossible for you to make it to outside so that you can get to the police and get help. So that is the situation. And what is worse is that none of the deployees are trained and are experts in retrieving people that are nearing weak levels underground. They were not just trained for that.
Yeah. So what are your biggest concerns around that very aspect? Because we do know that so far the 50 volunteers have gone underground, brought back 5 individuals to the surface. But the fact that they're not trained but are familiar with the terrain, what are your concerns around that? What do you think the best solution can be?
I mean, it's obvious. It means that by the time they get to some of the areas, it might be too late, for them to, save lives, So if you look at the Constitution, it says everyone has a right to life, which is Section 11. Everyone has a right to occupation of trade, choice, and association. Section 22 of the Constitution. And it's up to, a right to equality. So if you look at all those rights that are enshrined in the Constitution, they are not being, respected. They are not even being, considered when you look at the actions, because human life are put at risk really now. And chances are, if we are unable to go to the areas where they are working, it means they can be, left there, to rot and to die there. And that is not a situation that all of us are looking for South Africa. There are families, they are grieving parents, mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, who are waiting for their parents to come out. So the only thing that is needed now is a collaborative effort, whereby communities and National Association of Artisanal Miners and all the role players will play a collaborative role in making sure that we save these lives, but at the same time we make sure that we make the necessary preparations for our people, so that they cannot be faced with the same situation. They cannot be forced to this situation, but they can have an honest, legal, regulated way of putting bread on the table without taking all the risks that they are taking. So it's unfortunate that we are really playing with fire, and it's said that if you play with fire, you are bound to get fire. You're bound to get hurt.
You speak about human rights on the one end, but we cannot ignore the illegalities of what is happening underground. yes, there's a lot of grey area in between. I know you're very passionate about the role of artisanal miners in South Africa and often raise concerns on the poor understanding of the profile of the artisanal miner. But in this case, we're still looking at the legalities of mining, I mean, so-called zama-zamas, and the role of that entire space.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you are raising this question. No, currently what is happening now, there's been calls, by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, or DMPR as it now affectionately known. So it's about the amendments of MPRDA. Tomorrow we are also NAM as the National Association of Artisanal Miners. We are collaborating with other like-minded organizations such as your Makua, such as your Wamua, such as your Action Aid, such as your Lawyers for Human Rights. We are going to be submitting our petition. Our submissions to the national office at the DMRE tomorrow. So we will be bringing that. Artisanal miners from across all provinces to come and to try and raise the pressure to the government to say, let us amend the MPRDA so that it can accommodate our people. 30 years down the line, in democracy, you still have artisanal and small-scale mining not being really regulated by the MPRDA. So it means that it criminalizes everyone who's interested and affected by this, by mining in South Africa. And we must remember, we have to consider the restorative, distributive, and the procedural justice. We should be treated equally and the same, whether we are artisanal miners or we are small or large-scale mining companies. So what is happening is that we are not currently catered by the MPRDA. So part and parcel of the march and our submission to the DMRE is that we need to be catered and covered by the law so that we cannot be called or stigmatized to be illegal because of the of the sector not catering for artisanal and small scale mining. So that is the one factor. But what also needs to happen is that we need to speed up the process of implementation of the ASM, the Artisanal and Small Scale Policy, that was gazetted 2 years ago already. But there's still no implementation plan when it comes to that policy. So these are some of the things that must be done so that we can be able to be under the legal regime and we can be able to comply with the laws of the country, because currently everyone is a criminal that does not have a permit. And we all know that permits are only reserved for those that have not been, people of our descendant or people of South Africa, because you should know that we, as South Africa said, through the principles, we recognize the injustices of our past and are prepared to do redress. But that redress has to be done, now, so that it can be able to make sure that we put bread on the table and we restore dignity to the people that were marginalized, criminalized, and were made to be employers of the informal sector, ever since the invent of industrial mining.
Zethu, very quickly, we're seeing a group of community members volunteering to help in this instance, but it's not always the case. Mining communities have always complained in several areas across the country of the impact of these activities. There was a point where the SANDF was brought out to assist communities that were really battling in terms of criminal elements from mining workers and illegal mining communities. What sort of balancing act will be needed there?
I'm so happy you are asking me this question. I think this is a clear, simple, and it's a clear indication that artisanal miners are part and parcel of the fabric that makes the community what it is, So it depends, as you are rightfully saying, in the area like Stilfontein, where this is currently happening, you find that the biggest losers now are going to be the community members, because the community members were getting something out of artisanal mining or out of the sector, because they were supplying the food, they were supplying the cigarette, they were supplying the water, because they are unemployed. They were housing artisanal miners, they were getting rent, they were taking children to school, they were using the taxis, You know, they were buying in the local shops, they were, you know, dating in the same area. So the economy of the sector was trickling down to those communities. But now, ever since the volume code operation, now the communities have been barred, you know, to be engaging or to be playing the role that they were playing. And there is no something that was put on the table to say, instead of you selling food or, you know, servicing or contributing into the sector, here is an alternative that you can participate on to put bread on the table. But the people are just bad, but they are showing because they are feeling the feeling of artisanal miners, because those are their children, those are their fathers, those are their, you know, partners. So everyone is benefiting, especially those people that you can see that coming out now to say they can help lend a helping hand. So what is needed now is that we need to support those communities. We need to support NAM. We need to support, you know, all the role players in making sure that we assist the process of saving these lives of men and women who are merely trying to put a pen on the table. But at the same time, we make sure that we make the necessary preparations. Now, I'm glad to tell you that there are training and skills development opportunities that are being rolled out by your MQA and your MinTech. You know, these are the initiatives that must be, you know, also shine light on. They must be considered. They must also show that there are people who want to honestly and legally, you know, under regulation, work in a clean slate, but they are working with the government. So we need to make sure that we protect those people, because now, by the time we issue the permit or the training, there won't be any artisanal miner who will come forward to say, I want to be trained, I want to get the qualification, because everyone will be arrested. And then it will defeat the whole purpose of trying to make sure that we restore dignity back to the life of the men and the women who have made the decision and the choice, as difficult as it is, to put bread on the table through the artisanal and small-scale mining sector. So communities at the end of the day are going to be the biggest losers or the biggest winners, depending on how they look at the sector.
Very well. Thank you so much, Zethu, for speaking to us this evening and sharing those views, rounding up that conversation with spokesperson for the National Association of Artisanal Miners, Zethu Hlatshwayo.